daily, many times was just excruciating, especially for a small child and when you had multiple people beating on you.
Your parents were respectable parents in the community, and so a difficult time for people to actually, I mean, when you would present your concerns to school officials and others, they kind of turned I won't say turned a blind eye, but after all, you had such respectable parents. Who were they going to believe, right?
Exactly, and here's the thing, in the early 60s and 70s, which is when I was born and raised, they did not have that open forum. They didn't have hotlines like we do now. They didn't have any safe way for a child to report. So the couple of times I tried to get help or tried to sneak a message to someone, I was found out, and I paid a greater price at home because I tried to do that. And so the control factor was huge. You know, don't talk or I'll kill you.
Do you think things are different today, or in schools and in other? I mean, we have first reporter laws and so on. Do you think that perhaps your abuse would have been uncovered in today's environment where it wasn't back then?
I think so. I think if only for the fact that there are neutral hotline and helpline numbers out there. So if we teach our kids or put it in their phones or put it in every adult phone that here are numbers you can call for help, you know, confidentially, you know, without any repercussions, that would be one thing right there. But again, we're having conversations, you know, once we got a little further into the 70s, 80s, people started talking about child abuse, not to the extent that we have it now, but we're still way behind. In fact, the U.S. has one of the worst records among industrialized nations. We lose between 4 and 7 children every day to child abuse and neglect.
What are some things that teachers, other parents, community members, what are some warning signs that people should be looking for? As I'm sure you can attest to, it isn't always easy to spot child, you know, I mean, child abusers don't have necessarily horns on their head and tails and pitchforks to recognize. Right. So what are some signs that people should be looking for?
Well, a few of it, you know, how engaged is the child in school? I know for me, I kept my head down. I didn't really look at anybody. I just tried to do my work, and I prayed every day that I had the right answer so I wouldn't get in trouble with the teacher, because then the teacher would tell the parent, right? So, you know, and so it was a constant state of fear and adrenal guard, you know, just trying to make sure I got through the school day and I did well and got good enough grades. And then as I got a little bit older, elementary school, you know, I would try to create a relationship, at least with the teacher, not so much be the teacher's pet on purpose, but just be connected to somebody that would be nice to me, you know, that would know that I was a good person, because I was trying to establish an identity, you know, that I was a good person somewhere in life. And school was kind of where I put my energies into. But the threat was always there, because my birth mother was a teacher and my birth father was a salesman. So, you know, these people did, like you said, in normal jobs. We had a house, everything on the outside always looked good. The image was what we protected. But, you know, there were people who knew Howard, and I want to encourage, if you are a family member and you know someone who is abusing a child in that family, it is so critical to report, because the majority of familial abuse is rarely reported. They have the bloodline to cover them. And so don't let the fear of embarrassing the family allow a child to be abused or possibly killed. Again, see something, say something.
How can a community help to keep their children safe? I mean, we've talked here about some things to look for, to be aware of, and then perhaps to alert some kind of authorities about it. But I mean, are there things that as a community, as individuals, we can do to help keep our kids safer from child abuse?
Absolutely. I encourage communities, no matter how small or large they are, to implement some kind of program that will teach children their rights. I mean, we teach them not to do drugs and not to drink and drive and, things like that. But we need to do more as far as letting them know that they do not have to be hurt. They have a right to be safe, and to make sure that they know that abuse is not their fault, and to report offenders to the best of their ability. Right now, everyone's wearing masks, and it's very hard for any identity, especially from a child. What are they going to say? Well, they had a mask and glasses on, that makes it very difficult. But we also need to demand maximum penalties for child abusers from our local legislators in every town, and whether it's West Virginia or Oregon or wherever. And again, knowing who your legislators are, like the mayor or city council or district attorneys, what are they doing for your children in your community? What is their prosecution rate? How long are the sentences?
Mm-hmm.
But, again, also encouraging parents to be more involved with their children from birth to teenage years. It's not wrong to monitor their internet or their apps, set appropriate times. We're not trying to police our children. We're trying to protect them. And Howard, that's where the key comes in. Having the conversation with your child of any age that, when mom or dad or the guardian asks, where you're going or who your friends are, it's not because you're trying to, you're trying to intrude on their development, but you're trying to make sure that they have a safe way out. And if by chance they make a mistake or something happens, that it's okay to talk to that adult, that there's no shame and no judgment, right? We want to make sure they feel safe to talk to the people that can help them.
That's something that has to begin at an early age, I would think, because it can be a difficult conversation for a parent to have. I want to monitor your phone, or tell me where you're going. If you haven't built up some trust to begin with, then
right.
the kid is going to not like the fact that you seem to be, you want to be their prison guard, and so that requires a lot of work in building trust between parent and child.
Absolutely, and that takes time and it takes investment, and I get that, but at the same time, if you create a child, you need to think more about your children than you do about your own needs, your own comfort level, and, what it looks like to the community, okay? The first time something happens, that's the time to jump on it. But, the other thing, too, is having some kind of safe system or buddy system. For example, let's say you have a 15-year-old and he or she's going to their first party or their first date or whatever. Make sure there's a safe word or something that if that child feels in danger or not comfortable, they can text mom, dad, or a safe adult, and that word or that phrase will tell that adult they need help. And it's very dignified that way. But we need to create those opportunities. And again, if you're sending your child to music lessons or to college even, we have seen, like with the big USC scandals, with the OBGYN, violating hundreds of female students. So if we don't believe the adult students, how are we believing the children that report? So we need to do a better job of listening and vetting out, is this a real situation?
But let me do the devil's advocate thing here for a minute, because there are some folks who say, well, we've reached the point where we're so concerned about child abuse that sometimes kids use it as a weapon against their parents. My mom is beating me, and because we're so prone to immediately believe the child, the parents end up getting in trouble. You follow my line of reasoning here. I
do. I've seen that.
That's a lot of people see that as a real problem.
It is a real problem, especially in custodial battles. Parents are divorcing or they're separated and they're using the children as chattel, basically. The child is caught. They don't want to offend either parent, because even when you're being abused, sometimes that's all you know, and the thought of being moved or placed in foster care or, trying to find normal is overwhelming. But to that point, and that's a great point, just like anything, there's probably 10% of kids or adults claiming child abuse against a partner or against a parent. But again, that's where vetting it out comes in play. If you think there's smoke, check to make sure there's not a fire out of control. So, and the legal system has to do a better job also of vetting out the circumstances.
Yeah, don't disbelieve kids, but
right.
but if a child says or indicates to you that they've been the victim of abuse, take them seriously, but also find out if it's true. And using your story as an example, that probably means something more than just calling mom and dad and going, "Are you beating your kids?" You need to
exactly. Exactly. And with counselors, you have to make sure that there's a way for kids to reach out. So one of the simple things I recommend, Howard, is, have the local helpline in your phones or post it somewhere, wherever you can put it. 1-800-4-A-CHILD is a national child abuse helpline, and it's not just for victims. If you are out of control or you are under so much stress that you're going off on your kids mentally or emotionally or physically, call a safe number and say, "Look, I think I need some help. What can you do for me in my area?" Because a lot of times there are good people that get out of control and they don't want to, but they don't know also where to go without feeling humiliated or embarrassed or like they're going to be, ostracized in the community. And so those helplines, which they can find on voicesagainsttrafficking.com or Beulah'sPlace.org, my two organizations. We have child abuse hotlines, trafficking hotlines, suicide prevention hotlines. So those are there to help both adult and child. And then, of course, if you're a predator, then watch out, because we are creating such a huge movement to make sure that you can't do this, for very long.
Well, this month is National Child Abuse Prevention Month, but the truth of the matter is every day should be Child Abuse Prevention Day. And so,
yes.
Andy, I appreciate some of these tips you've given us today based on your own experience. I always enjoy talking to you simply because you're someone who made it through some horrific times and has come through and ends up trying to help others who are still in bad situations. So good talking to you as always, and we'll do it again, I'm sure.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for being out there to get the awareness, Howard.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Andy. Andy Berger is...
Okay.
Bye-bye. She has been with us several times before. She has created an agency called Beulah's Place. I'm not going to get into it, but boy, her story of child abuse and sexual abuse as a child just is horrific. And she's told us the story in detail before. It reached the point where she just wanted to kill herself, walk out in the middle of a street and said, "I just think I'll let the car hit me and kill me." It's just...
you talk about feeling so many... The first time she told that story and all the emotions, that you just felt, it was... I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, her story is just a horrific story, but she made it out and made it through. And again, her the story, the part of it that it's a little bit different today, but not totally. Her parents were, if I remember correctly, her dad was, her mom was a teacher, I think, right?
Yeah, I think her mom was a teacher, and wasn't her, I forget what her father.
I was thinking her father might have been even involved in law enforcement, although I could be wrong about that. At any rate, they're respectable members of the community. She goes and reports to, when she was a kid, she would go and report to teachers, "My mom is beating me." Well, my mom is a teacher. Who are they going to believe? And the tendency, of course, was to believe. And mom would say, "Oh, she has a vivid imagination." And, but her story, I'm not going to get into it again. But when she told the story the first time, I'm like you, Biff, it's like, oh my God. How do you make it through? And it continued for decades. It began when she was a little child and continued until she was a teen.
Yeah, and you almost thought, well, obviously she did make it through, but not knowing anything, you're thinking, well, man, is she even going to make... The fact that she was talking to us,
yeah,
just listening to it, it's like, wow.
Again, the moment of truth story that she tells is when she was standing on the curb of a street and things had gotten so bad, she said, I think I'll just step out into the street and let a car hit me and kill me. And there are probably kids today who feel that way too. So anyways, National Child Abuse Prevention Month, every day should be Child Abuse Prevention Day. And we have plenty of agencies here in the Upper Ohio Valley that deal with this. Schools are trained better at this now. But as individuals, we need to be on the alert for signs and symptoms of child abuse. Yes, we have to be careful that we don't allow these things to get blown out of hand. I get that. But be aware, be alert, be a friend of the child. It's 8:27 here on the Watchdog Morning Show. A couple of tidbits I want to get to in just a minute. I'll do a quick, I think it may be a PSA or something here. Oh, no, I'll promote Donnie's show. And we can talk about games for a minute here. Just enough to kill a second or two, then we'll go to the news, okay?
IT company that the Watchdog trusts.
New Belgium Fat Tire Amber Ale is now available in West Virginia and distributed locally by wine and beverage merchants. With its toasty and biscuit-like malt flavors blended perfectly with hoppy freshness, it's bound to become one of your new favorite craft beers. Fat Tire Amber Ale is now available at local retailers. Please don't drink and drive and drink responsibly. From your friends at Wine and Beverage Merchants.
CA House Music has all the gear to make your music legendary. With all the best gear including Fender, Epiphone, Yamaha, and more, CA House will have you rocking in no time. Get the most for your money with everyday low prices. And we meet or beat internet pricing. Play before you buy and let our product specialists help you pick out the instrument that's right for you. CA House Music, supporting local musicians since 1872. Play music for life.
Most of us are faced with uncertainty every day. Your job, your finances, sporting events, schooling for your children, and so much more. With so much uncertainty surrounding you, there is one auto dealership that you can be certain about, and that's Doan Ford. You can be certain that you always get a great deal and the best service afterwards. Being in business for over 50 years has given Doan Ford the reputation of being a strong, reliable dealership. Be certain. Choose Doan Ford. Online at DoanFord.com.
I'm not buying till I check Doan Ford.
I'm Josh from Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration. I hope you are staying healthy. We continue to respond to structural, fire, and water emergencies. We are combating COVID-19 with our highly trained staff and latest disinfection systems, providing preventative and reactive disinfection to facilities around the region, while working with area hospitals on isolation areas and air filtering. At Panhandle, we continue to follow social distancing and hygiene protocols. We are dedicated to our community, and together we will get through this.
Adina, the Watchdog is protecting your yard. Join Howard Monroe, Hoppy Kercheval, Bill DeFabio, and Big Rick for the best live and local talk in the Upper Ohio Valley and beyond. Adina trusts the Watchdog.
You can vote in our Watchdog poll and read commentary in our blogs on watchdognetwork.com. The Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues.
37 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport, 35 here at my home studios. Clear sky, sunshine outside. Going to get up to nicely into the 50s today, but the morning's still going to be cold, so you're going to have to want to wear a nice warm coat this morning, as Zach said earlier, and then prepare to probably wear it around your waist on your way home. Hey, Bippy, it's a Friday. You know what that means?
Donnie G.
Dancing with Dr. G today at noon on AM 1370 WVOY and FM 97.7. It is the Donnie Gilbert radio show. There is no other show like it in the entire Ohio Valley. Quite frankly, not in the world. In the world. There's no other show quite like the Donnie Gilbert radio show. And as frequently is the case, this week he'll be up at Quaker Steak and Lube, broadcasting live. Among his guests, a friend of ours, Moundsville City Manager Rick Healy will be in. Rick will talk about all the things going on in Moundsville, and there's a lot going on. I've been meaning to get Rick on this show for a while, and haven't had a chance to do that, so I have to do that. Ryan Storm will talk about Little League Baseball on the Donnie Gilbert Show today. This week's CA House Artist of the Week is John Kane. He'll be in. He'll also be, besides playing for Donnie, he'll be playing at El Gran Patron this weekend. So join Donnie Gilbert, Dancing with Dr. G, today, noon until 2, on AM 1370, WVOY, and FM 97.7. And then we have a lot of sports for you this weekend, Biffy. Heck, we roam over 3 separate sports over the course of the weekend, right?
Yes, we do, and it starts tonight with West Virginia baseball. They are at Kansas State for the weekend, and they play tonight at 6 o'clock is the first of 3 games. And then tomorrow, how about this? We have the Penguins in the afternoon at 12:30. They play the Devils.
Okay.
Then following the Penguins at 4:30 is the second game of the 3-game series, West Virginia and at Kansas State. And then after baseball, we have basketball, North Marion and Wheeling Central playing in the one of these sectional championship games on Saturday night. So that is your Saturday. And then Sunday is the third game of West Virginia and Kansas State at 1:30.
Oh, boy. So we have a very busy weekend for you, all different kinds of sports. Just I think you said it yesterday, Biffy, tune in at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning for the Sports Huddle. Settle in for a weekend of good sports.
I mean, really, all you got to do Saturday morning at 9, turn us on, you'll get the Sports Huddle, and you can listen, just leave it. Because all day we'll go, yeah. That's it. We'll go from the Sports Huddle, maybe into a little bit of might be SB and then the Penguins. Then after the Penguins, you got West Virginia baseball. And then after West Virginia baseball, you got Wheeling Central basketball. So just put it on us at 9 and just leave it there all day Saturday, all day tomorrow.
And remember, if for some reason you can't listen to us over the airwaves, be sure to use our TuneIn Radio app. TuneIn Radio is a free app. Download it to any of your smartphones or to your tablets. Look up WVOY 1370 and WKKX. Save those as your favorites or in your phone or your tablet. And you can listen online anytime, or go directly to watchdognetwork.com, where we have audio streams to each of the stations as well. So if you're out of the immediate listening area, or maybe you're out of town for that matter, you can listen to us no matter where you are using TuneIn Radio or watchdognetwork.com. 8:35, 25 till the hour. We're going to talk to Wheeling's Vice Mayor Chad Thalman. That's coming up next here on the Watchdog Morning Show. But first, let's get some headlines.
The WTRF Channel 7 News Update is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
Now, I'll be back in a minute. We should have Chad on in this segment.
Grove Pharmacy and Kroger on Mount Deshaunta Road is collecting unused, unwanted, and expired pills for safe disposal. They are partnering with law enforcement agencies in Ohio County. The event takes place from 10 to 2, and registrations are still being accepted for the Adopt a Highway Spring statewide cleanup set for tomorrow. Since the program started in 1988, West Virginians have cleaned up nearly 70,000 miles of state highways and roads. Volunteers must be at least 12 years old to participate. Garbage bags, work gloves, and safety vests are all provided. To register, call 1-800-322-5530. And that was a look at your headlines. Have a great day and a great weekend, everyone.
Neil Brown gets a contract extension. I'm Tony Caridi, and that story and more coming up on today's Mountaineer Report, brought to us by Kroger, the official grocer of WVU Athletics.
Did you know that 1 in 8 Americans struggle with hunger? Yet more than 40% of the food we produce is thrown out. At Kroger, we know we can do something about this. We're donating more food to local food banks through our partnership with Feeding America. And we're working with World Wildlife Fund to end food waste. But we can't do it alone, and we hope you'll join us in creating a world with zero hunger and zero waste. Visit thekrogerco.com to learn how you can help.
Love getting prices that are lower than low on backyard favorites like
Okay, I'm back, Biffy. I may have to take an emergency break, just giving you a little heads up. Just be aware.
Book for the latest news, show updates, podcasts, alerts, and live video streams from the Valley's only network dedicated to local, community-driven talk radio, The Watchdog.
We're on air, online, on video, and on demand. Find us where you like us. This is the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe.
Still a cool morning, 37 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. We're about 36 here at my home studios in Elm Grove, both the airport and here are clear and sunny, 35 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio, at the Robinson Auto Group Studios, downtown Wheeling, in the heart of the Ohio Valley as well. But again, going to warm up, so don't panic too much. Get up to into the 50s today, and then a really nice, a seasonable weekend is in store. Actually, a hot week next week, going into perhaps 70s and 80s. Let me welcome to the show the Vice Mayor of the City of Wheeling, Chad Fallman. Mr. Vice Mayor, good morning, sir.
Morning, Howard. Happy to be here.
A quick question about morning news. Morning Intel today says that the Public Safety Committee was looking at a rental inspection program, which I know you guys have kicked around in the past. You are a landlord, I think, are you not?
Correct. I am, as are several other members of City Council, yes.
So how do you, I don't know if you're on public safety or not, I should and I don't, but how do you feel about this rental inspection idea?
Yeah, I'm not on the Public Safety Committee. This is something the Public Safety Committee has been working on, particularly Councilman Ben Seidler. So several members of City Council, including myself, as you said, are landlords. So we certainly understand the point of view of a landlord. We don't want to put an undue burden on landlords. But at the same point in time, one of the major complaints we hear over and over and over again are about slumlords throughout the city of Wheeling. So I believe Councilman Seidler wants to, make sure that we're cracking down on the slumlords, holding them accountable, but not putting any undue burden on the landlords that are considered to be good landlords. So, I give him credit, Councilman Seidler, for moving forward with this and trying to bring something to City Council and working on something that hopefully can satisfy everybody. Well, nothing's going to satisfy everybody, but we can hopefully, take care of the people that are living in what you might consider to be slumlord type housing, while also not placing any undue burden on landlords. But we're pretty much, my understanding is Councilman Seidler is pretty much in the early phases of this, so we'll see how it plays out.
Certainly we need to make a point that the vast majority of landlords do a good job. And I'm not just saying that because you're a landlord, but the vast majority of landlords are there to make some money and to provide housing. But there are always a few that create problems. I haven't seen this current proposal, but the line that I've used in the past when you guys have talked about rental inspection programs is we're not asking every home to come up to what I call Woodsdale standards. It's just to meet minimum standards of health and safety, basically, right?
Yeah, and I haven't taken a look at the entire draft that Councilman Seidler has put together, but yeah, obviously we don't want to place any undue burden on landlords, but we do want to make sure that housing is safe, and that the basic standards are being followed is my understanding what Councilman Seidler is looking at doing.
Okay, well, we'll delve into it later. Since you were on the show, I wanted to get your quick take on it. And again, I knew that you were a landlord, as you point out, others are as well. Chad, you probably have heard me talk in the past that I've covered Wheeling City Council for over 30 years, and it seems to me, and I'm not picking on this current council because this is prior to this council, but it seems to me that once upon a time, there was a lot more robust debate that happened on council floor. That when issues came up, you would actually hear debate about them on council floor. Councilmen would stand up and women would stand up and ask questions and explain why they agreed or disagreed. It seems to me in recent years that, and I do include y'all in this, but it didn't begin with your council, it's a much more cut and dried. It seems like here's the bill, here's let's take a vote, let's move on.
Yeah, I can't really speak to what happened, many years ago. I graduated high school in 2000, went to Morgantown. After I graduated in 2004, I moved to Frederick, Maryland. So by the time I moved back to Wheeling and started paying attention to local events, it was probably 2007. So, anything prior to that, I can't really speak to. But, I can tell you what we tried to do is, something like the landlord, the rental inspection program. This is something Councilman Seidler's been working on. This is something he's taken the lead on. I know he spent considerable amount of time, with city staff, and this is something that will typically be hashed out, in the Public Safety Committee. Other members of council may chime in. I may call up Councilman Seidler and say, hey, I understand why you're doing this, this, and this, but why is this in here? And he'll explain it to me, and maybe I'll agree, maybe I'll disagree, maybe he'll change it, maybe he won't. But a lot of the stuff I think does get hashed out with city staff, at the Public Safety Committee level, which consists of 3 members of council. And by the time it comes to City Council, a lot of times I think it has been hashed out, it has been, finalized, so to speak, and it is ready for prime time, so to speak. So I can't speak to what happened, 20 years ago at City Council meetings, but we only have 2 city council meetings a month, and that's set by, city charter. And I think the most efficient way to do things is to hash stuff out, before you get to city council, so that by the time something gets to city council, it's ready to be voted on. I mean, if we use city council meetings as a way to, if we only discuss stuff at a city council meeting and not at committee meetings and maybe not one-on-one with city staff, wherever the case may be, it would take months or years to get stuff passed. So I can't speak again, I keep saying this, to what happened prior to roughly 2007 when I started paying attention, but that's kind of how the system works with the current city council and with the prior city council, the 2016 city council that I was on.
And I buy that. I mean, I agree with that up to a point. You can't just start from scratch and have the full debate on council floor. That's why you have committee meetings. And that's why the staff works on things. And as you said, you call and say, well, what about this? Can we adjust this? And it comes to the committee meeting. I get that. There's a process there. But and so from a council point of view, council members' point of view, you have a chance to vet it in a committee meeting and with phone calls and so on. What about the public, though? Chad, doesn't the public have a right to hear more of the debate and to get a little better idea of where people's thoughts are on this? And that tends to happen. If it doesn't happen on council floor, the general public doesn't pay as much attention to it.
Yeah, well, all of our, obviously the council meetings are public. The council meetings are very public. All of our council meetings for last year have been live streamed on Facebook. Since roughly 2017, all of our council meetings have been aired on Westlib TV. And all of our committee meetings, which are only 3 members of city council, but oftentimes all 7 members of city council will be at a committee meeting, even though only 3 members can vote. But all of those meetings are open to the public. Typically the newspaper shows up to those meetings. Sometimes, other media outlets will show up to the committee meetings. But, the idea that everything has to happen, in council chambers just at a city council meeting, that's just not how the city charter is set up with numerous different committees.
But the truth, we have to talk about reality as well as, the reality is that the general public doesn't pay much attention to committee meetings. Media will sometimes be there, sometimes not. The general public, and if I remember correctly, again, I go back to the days when I was literally sitting in council with my notebook all the time. At committee meetings, you never saw anybody from the public unless they had a vested interest. But at council meetings, you have people who have an interest who show up just to hear and see what's being said. That's where a lot of the debate was. Now, I want to quickly say, sometimes it went way off the rails back in the old days. I remember one particular council, there was an aggressive fight about some issue, and a council member stood up and flipped a quarter into the middle of the council chambers and said, "There's a quarter, call someone who cares." All right, so that got a little out of hand sometimes, I would agree. But I always felt like at the end of a council meeting, I had gotten a real good sense of where each individual member stands. And I don't know that I get that anymore. I feel like it was all cut and dried and here comes the vote and that's it. Sometimes one of you guys will stand up and ask the city manager to explain a little bit more, but I don't know. I'm not sure the public is fully engaged enough in committee meetings to really know what's happening until the final vote is taken.
Yeah, well, to some extent, the responsibility is on the public to pay attention, and the responsibility is on the media to give the public that information. And you pointed out something important. All of our votes take place, in public. Anything the committee passes has to then also pass city council. So when you say you don't know where council members stand, well, all you got to do is look at how they vote.
Yeah, but it doesn't tell me how they think. It doesn't tell me how they got to that decision. It doesn't tell me if they had questions. It doesn't tell me if this is in their minds, well, I'm not really totally behind it, but I think it's better than not doing it. I don't get that sense. If all I see is a vote, I don't have a sense of the thought process. And I kind of like to know what my council member is thinking and how they've come to that. And with due respect, while I will accept the responsibility of the media, I think it's a little unfair to say to the public, well, if you don't care enough to pay attention, that's your problem. It seems to be what you're saying, and I don't think that's really a good way to approach it. Your problem is to help the public better understand what you're thinking, you as an individual, you as council. That's part of your responsibility.
Yeah, and as Howard, as you know, Mayor Elliott and I do a radio show on this network every Wednesday from 12 to 1 where we take calls and we explain, what the city's up to, why City Council is doing X, Y, Z, what we have coming in the future. I think Mayor Elliott, myself, and every single member of City Council has been very open with the media. It's very rare that we turn down an interview. If we do turn down an interview, it's usually us saying, well, I'm not the best person to talk about this topic, but this person, this member of council, the city manager, et cetera, are better equipped on this particular topic than I am. We answer the newspaper's questions. We appear on Channel 7, Channel 9, the radio. We Facebook Live our council meetings. We put, our council meetings on Westlib TV. So I think we're doing about as much as we can do realistically to keep people informed. But the idea that, council meetings are set up similar to a radio show. I think you had a Facebook post a few weeks ago where you said you've learned more about what the city's up to from Mayor Elliott and I's radio show than you do from a council meeting. Well, Mayor Elliott and I's radio show is designed to explain what's going on in the city. It's an hour-long show. With commercials, it's 40 minutes, so it's 40 minutes of us explaining what's going on in the city, why we're up to X, Y, Z. Whereas a council meeting, I think, is designed to get the public's business completed in an efficient and professional manner while also making sure that we're being good stewards of taxpayer money. So I think it's kind of set up a little bit different. That's not to say that, we can't talk more at council meetings, but, we vote. I mean, our votes are public. If we support something, if we don't support something, should we stand up and say, I'm voting yes because I think this is a great idea? I mean, I guess we could say that, but I also would say if we're voting yes, it's safe to assume that we support the idea.
Yeah, I was going to make the same point you made. I think it was last week in particular, I was listening to your show here on the Watchdog, and I felt like I learned a whole lot more listening to you and the mayor on the radio than I did at any council meeting. I got lots of good information from listening to the radio show, and I'm not pitching the radio show just because you're here and it's our station, but I really did. I felt like I learned more from the radio show than I generally do from a council meeting. And maybe you're right, Chad. Maybe they're designed to be two different things. I have often said, for example, when members of the public want to have kind of a debate with you guys on council floor, I've often said it's not a radio show. It's not the Phil Donahue show. It's a council meeting. So I don't know. Maybe you make a good point. I think back when I was covering council on a regular basis, and I always felt that there was a full, robust discussion on council floor, people who watched it, and back in those days, it was also broadcast, people who watched the tape of it, got a better sense of where your thought process was. Not just your vote, but your thought process.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't comment on what happened prior to, when I started paying attention to Wheeling City Council roughly 2007, but we've always been very open. As I said, we have a radio show. All the other members of council have been very open. It's extremely rare that anyone turns down an interview. So if the media has a question, I think we've always been very open with answering those questions. The newspaper will sometimes send Mayor Elliott, myself, other members of council, a list of questions. I think virtually 100% of the time we get back, to the reporter with answers to those questions. I think maybe we just have different views as to what a council meeting is designed to be. Most of our council meetings last over an hour, and that's assuming we don't have anyone signed up to speak. There's been some controversial topics that have been on the council agenda, and you might have 10 people come to a council meeting, sign up to speak. They each get 3 minutes, so you got an hour-long council meeting. You got another 30 minutes of people speaking. If we want to stand up and express our feelings about everything, I'm not sure the council chambers is the most appropriate place to do that, but we certainly always answer the media's questions. There's not too many questions I can remember any council meeting ever dodging. I mean, if a member of the media says, why is XYZ happening, or why did you vote, this certain way, I think we've always been open to answer those questions. And if maybe I'm wrong, but I would say Mayor Elliott and myself are probably the first members of city council in anyone's memory that actually have a radio show designed to explain exactly what the city is up to, what city council is doing, explaining what we had done in the past, what we're currently doing, and what we might be doing in the future.
Well, you're right. When the charter was first revised and Jack Lippart was mayor, Jack did a weekly show with me every Friday or Monday or something. And that's the only other time I remember any member of council or the mayor having a regular spot to bring city issues to the forefront. And of course, that was quite some time ago. So I think the show, I really commend the show. I learned a lot last week. I learned a whole lot that I had not learned before. So I want to just touch real quickly, and I agree with this, but the public sometimes gets irritated, Chad, when you have the time for public comment at the end of the meeting. Everybody gets 3 minutes to speak, and council, the mayor, the administration, nobody responds. You just listen and don't respond. I understand that, but let's talk about why that is.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that's not something new that this city council started. I mean, we've also had people complain that they only get 3 minutes to talk, but that's not unique to this city council. That goes back to prior city councils, and the segment that you're talking about is at the end of the council meeting. It's called Those Wishing to be Heard. And I don't believe there's any government body, like not at the local level, not at the state level, not at the federal level, that allows people just to stand up in the middle of the meeting and start barking questions and that they're going to answer those questions. You stand up in the middle of the meeting and start asking questions, you're going to be escorted out. But we allow anyone to sign up to speak, to talk about any topic for 3 minutes. They don't even have to live in the city of Wheeling. And we sit there and listen, and we take their thoughts and points into consideration. And sometimes people bring, an idea to a council meeting that we haven't previously thought of. Sometimes people point something out that, from an angle that we haven't previously seen. But the idea that we're supposed to, get in a back and forth with people, I mean, that's just not something that happens in any government body that I'm aware of. And we've had individuals that come to council with the intention of being disruptive. We've had people, try to light stuff on fire in a council meeting. We've had people stand up in the middle of the meeting and start yelling at us and telling us we belong in jail. And I think if you get in a back and forth with people, I mean, it could devolve. And that's not unique to Wheeling City Council. There's not a single elected body in the country that I'm aware of, and maybe there's one or two out there, that allow people just to stand up and start barking out questions. Now, if someone comes up to us after the meeting, we've always, met with them and answered their questions. If someone emails, texts, calls us, we've always tried to respond. But what I've seen, or, sometimes you'll have people that during those wishing to be heard, they'll start asking questions, and, we'll say, the mayor will say, well, we're here to listen, not to answer the questions, but come talk to us after the meeting, and then the meeting's over, and they're not interested in talking. They were kind of just doing that for show because the cameras were there, it was in the middle of the city council meeting, et cetera. They're not really looking for an answer to their questions oftentimes.
Yeah, and again, I don't disagree with that. I think you're absolutely correct. But I know that it sometimes seems as if you don't care. I know that you don't. I agree with the way you handle it, but people stand up, they make a big speech about an issue, maybe they end with a question, and then you guys just sit there and there's no response, and I know that people get upset with that. But I agree, you cannot conduct a radio show, so to speak, on council. And
I don't think that's unique to Wheeling City Council. I don't think there's any government body that allows people to stand up and start asking questions and getting a back and forth.
And I want to just, again, as I began by saying, this did not begin with the current council. At least it goes, my concern that we don't get as robust debate, it at least goes back to Mayor McKenzie's councils, if not before that. So I want to be clear, it didn't just begin under the Elliott Ballman regime. Chad, I appreciate your time today. You probably know how it works. I'm out of time.
Yeah, I'll come back anytime. Thanks, Howard.
All right, thanks a lot. Wheeling's Vice Mayor Chad Thalman here on the Watchdog Morning Show. 9 o'clock, ABC News is already in progress.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
The ABC News is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
It's been good to have this.
Okay, Biffy, unless he changes his mind, we will not hear from McCabe, so.